Greetings. Yeah. This is the metamorphosis. This is Dr. Iblak live on the Iblak Sundayschool YouTube channel. So greetings to one another. Anciency. We know who built the pyramids. And we know the people of the Nile Valley culture. Yes, Tinaskilin. Welcome to the first official broadcast of the Metamorphosis, coming to you through the Iblak School YouTube channel, Iblak Sundayschool. All powers to the powers of the brain that has created technology to allow this type of interaction. Iblak Sundayschool is a concept that is based upon the need for deep analysis of a certain aspect of the experience of Black people, an area often overlooked, often ignored when trying to sort out the remedies for our trauma. And the trauma of the African people has been deep. It has been over 2 centuries old, over 2,000 years. And so the healing is serious. But more important and more critical than the healing is identifying the root causes of our inertia, the root causes of our inability to cooperate with each other. Obviously, the world is in a topsy-turvy state as I speak. And I realize that I probably need another broadcast to deal with the world affairs as it is. Because Iblak Sundayschool wants to deal with something that is historically in our system, and as I said, need to be brought to the surface. Concept of a school in the first place. Then we want to look at what it is that a Sunday school is all about. And how has these things impacted the psyche and the mentality of African people? What has been the impact of Sunday school on the mind set, on the psyche of the Black man? We speak much about primary school and the importance of basic school, the importance of graduating from primary to secondary. We even give a great amount of credit for those who move from secondary to tertiary, because there's great credit in quote-unquote education. And so the rank and the status of the people change as they get these various education experiences. Sometimes we separate the people who have less degrees and qualification than those who have. It doesn't necessarily mean that the talent is different, but we know that the certification process and how it works in the real world. So all of those schools we have been exposed to. I went to coaching school to develop the professional skills how to be a coach. I even went to printing school as Marcus Garvey recommended that black man master one of these skills. So schools are great institutions. But what is vital to a school is its curriculum, the subject matters that they pass on to students. And just as important as a curriculum are the books that support each of these courses, and the literature and the writing and that type of stuff. So this Iblak Sunday School now wants to be the forum where we as African people who never got a chance to really examine the school that we went to. All of us literally went to this particular school without knowing. Some forcibly, some knowingly. It's a school that was said to be kept on Sundays. That's all the name, Sunday School. The school system evolved out of the plantation societies. There was a Sunday school program in Europe. I won't speak about it right now. But the Sunday school that I want to speak about is what we experience as black people. And this we have been introduced to from the deal with the plantation, where slavery was from morning, from before light till dark. Monday to Saturday, half day. And on the Sunday, the population was told that that is the day of rest and the day of appreciation and the day for prayer. And so this idea of Sunday school now, and I was sent to one, most of us were sent to some Sunday school program. And so we want to look at what is it that we were imbibed in during that Sunday school, all of us. What did we really get out of that, and what have we still held on to? And what was the curriculum about? Who were the teachers? Did they know what they were teaching? The first critique of Sunday school as an African was that no questions were allowed during Sunday school. No questions could be asked of the person delivering the messages. We call this person the pastor. And what was even more intriguing was that the school only had one book. One book is what the school used. Now, when you leave Sunday school and you go to basic school or primary school, each subject have a set of books. Sometimes you see the children carrying some heavy bag on them back. You wonder why they have to carry so many books to school. But this particular Sunday school structure only have one book. One book. And from this one book now, we are trained and indoctrinated in how to view the world, how to interpret experiences. And the book was provided to help us to give meaning now to our drab lives. We would search that book to find meaning, to overcome the burden of being slaves. So we have to deal with this book and some of the questions that some of us could not ask, and some of those answers that we are afraid of, that we still are afraid of, although we may have degrees now. So we may have a vastly populated society with educated people, but they all have their education anchored in Sunday school teachings. So this particular Black Sunday School has three basic texts that will be the foundation of this school. One, the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. Yeah? One of the main texts in this particular Sunday school. The other text that will be used is called The Power of Pigmentation, the truth behind dark skin. And the third book in this particular school will be Black Tridentity, I, Me, and the Self, the Black Trinity. So the difference automatically between Sunday School framework and Iblak Sunday School is that this school will draw upon the writings not only of Marcus Garvey, but the great scholars, Dr. Ben Yochanan, Professor Molefi Asante, John Henry Clark, Cheat Anta Diop, Dr. Franz Fanon, George James, J.A. Rogers. So this school is offering a broader base for knowledge with I writers and scholars who have studied and done the necessary investigation to put forward literature. And so the reasoning on this Black Sundayschool is really about interrogating what we have been given as the truth and what is the reality. The book that we have been given, we have been told it is a book that contains the words of God. That's a very powerful acclamation, that a book contains the words of God. And because the concept of God has been presented to us in a very disturbing way, it gives us even greater fear to interrogate the words of God, because God itself as a concept now is something that is presented to us as all-powerful. That is the first characteristics, that God is all-powerful. And then they tell us that God is all-good. And we have held on to those two constructs of ideas about God from the time we have been given the notion that Black people don't have any soul. And in order to make Black people people of soul, we would have to embrace the doctrine of Christianity. So the Sunday school program was kind of geared to enforce that the ideas of Christianity and the God of Christians and the God of the Bible would be strongly reinforced in the consciousness of the Black people. So we have been drilled into God as the Almighty. And those beliefs are reinforced now by this one book given to us called the Bible. So what Iblak Sundayschool will do is not try to examine the whole Bible, because what we have been given as the Bible, we know many books have been removed and many things have been gone with. So the interest is not in trying to identify how many books were there and blah blah. No. Black Sundayschool wants to deal with just 3 of the many books that have been presented. And these 3, I think, cause us the greatest amount of angst and anxiety and fear in our consciousness. The first book, of course, is the book of Genesis. The second book that will be interrogated is the book of Exodus. And third book will be the book of Revelation. Now, there are some who think that the book of Revelation is really the first book that should be presented to us. But we have been given a book that is called the Genesis. And the word suggests a beginning. So the mind that we have, the brain, can conceptualize things having a beginning. And nearly all of us conclude that, quote unquote, everything must have a beginning. We hold that from a long time. And we feel justified by saying everything must have a beginning. So in the Sunday school program, you could never get up and ask what was there before the beginning, sir or mom. You could never get up and ask a question like, how did God begin? You couldn't ask any questions at all about God, because the fear of God was driven into I, and that if you don't love God, you will lose your soul. So we get these ideas now that we have to be playing around with. God is one, then the idea of a soul. I was a little youth and I began to hear about soul, but then I learned about the soul at my feet. And that my foot bottom was really on the soul there. And check the power of the soul of the feet. Check the level of connection and integration with the entire body. But let's leave that part alone out for a minute. Let us look at the concept of what they've given us now as the Almighty. And this Almighty now is not only all-knowing, but it's also all-seeing. So the Almighty can see all things that are happening now and all things that are about to happen. This is the impression we get of this concept called God the Almighty. And besides being omnipresent, omnipotent, all these omni terms are attached to God now. So the omnipresent means that God is everywhere and everywhere. So no slave can hide. You can't run away from the plantation and think you're going to get away from Baka because God is watching you. What a piece of trauma. For hundreds of years, we have been whipped into that meditation of God being omnipresent. So present that in your own brain, God knows what you are thinking. Man, what a height of control. So you turn all things over now to God. And the backer master just begins to back off and exploit in a deeper way. Because the God that we have been spoken about doesn't seem to be in the corner of the oppressed. That same God that they tell us about could foresee the African enslavement, could see the slave trade, could foresee everything, according to all that this God is powerful. But all these things have been manifested under the vision of God. And yet the slave owners also speak to us of God and calls upon God for their protection. So we have to question now, what is this concept given to us as this Almighty, especially within the area of goodness? As a tsunami blows, 25,000 people die. An earthquake comes, 15,000 people die instantly. Where is the goodness of that God that they speak about? So Iblak Sundayschool raising that initially, about we have to revisit what they give us now as Almighty God. Because I see leaders of the world firing missiles and at the same time giving God thanks and telling us that God saved them and God saved them country. We have to be bold enough to question what they have planted in our brains for hundreds of years. They're becoming like it turned cement. And not only have we been given the notion of a good God, but we've been told that there's an arch enemy of that good God. And that arch enemy is a being that we call Satan, who was once an angel created by the almighty goodness of God, but somehow could develop an independent will. So we ask the pastor man, didn't God foresee all these things happening with his vision? And then not only his vision, we have been kind of locked into this idea now of masculine being superior, because the Almighty Creator God is a He. And the ancient Africans before our captivity always had a greater respect for the she as it relates to creation. The ancient African culture, Kemetic people recognize the feminine principle as the creative force. But the Christian Bible God has no room for the feminine. It's a male, Caucasian dominated type of philosophy and ideology, which black man embracing and can't work. Self-conflicting. So this leads to our own destruction, trying to embrace that type of alien thinking. So you can't ask the pastor anything about the creation mythology. You can't ask him whether it's a myth or it's a reality. And there are several things that I have to come to grip with now as we talk about school. Because the schools that the enslaved Africans have been in primarily have been teaching us things in English, especially I and I on this side. And English is the language of the colonizer. English is the language of the enslaver. And within the language of English now, there are several devices. Not all of us will know this. Several devices of the language that allow you to say things and mean something else. Metaphors and similes, personification, literal, figurative, all these types of speech are tools of English. So when we begin to read the Christian Bible given to us by the Europeans, the first two lines says, in the beginning. In the beginning. And without being able to ask questions, you don't feel it up to scratch to question the nature now of time. In the beginning of what? In the beginning of what? Time as a concept. Can it have a beginning? And can time have an end? What is time? And if time has a beginning, something started time. And if something started time, that thing also had a beginning. So the concept of a beginning moves us into the realms of infinity. Wherein just like numbers, there is no first number. There is no biggest number, and there is no smallest number. You just simply have to add one to every number that you come up with, and do it bigger. You just have to take away one, and it becomes smaller. It's the same thing with time. There is no beginning, and there is no end. It's a dimension of energy. It's a reality that is divided into 2 or 3 different dimensions. There's the past, there's the present, and there's the time to come. Potential time. So being locked up in fear of some entity that started time is part of our captivity. And wherever there is time, there must be a question of space. Time answers the question of when. If you can't answer the question of when, how do you speak about time? Unless you take it to a different level of explanation and you begin to talk about parables and fables. So if you want to deal with an event, but you don't know when it started, you say, once upon a time. That's what the children respond to, because once upon a time captures the imagination. But as you go a little bit older and the brain gets a little bit more mature, in the beginning is more forceful than once upon a time. And we hold on to in the beginning as a reality when there is no beginning. The second part of that line says, God created the heaven, and I'm going to say, and hell. The Bible says heaven and earth. I am saying God created heaven and hell. And what therefore created God? So it's not even who created God, what created God. So there is time, that has always been, and there is space. But the creator of the creator itself is the mind. The mind is the creator. The mind is the sustainer, and the mind is also the destroyer. So the 3 basic foundations of reality coming from the Black school is time, space, and mind. Iblak Sundayschool will also engage in the creation story of Eve and Adam. We question the nature of a female, as we know, as the source of creation, yet in the story it is the male that is producing the female. So we look at those stories and we were unable to ask questions as, how can a man produce a child without sperm? So we're talking about the basics of creation between male and female. And it is the female who carries the life form to fruition, and the man carries the seed. I've always wondered how could a woman come out of the rib of a man. And we have used that thinking to maintain the ideology of male supremacy. That's where that story finds its foundation, that the male is superior to the female because she came out of him. It's a backward thinking because in reality, all females are the source of where life come out of. And then we can go further along into the next system to talk about the children. That we are told that the world begins with two people who were cast out of a garden, and they would populate the world, and their children would interbreed with each other. And the God of the Bible oversees this incestuous development. And the people will tell you that it was okay at that time. Incest is incest. An incestuous relationship develop genetically deficient children. So we're going to revisit some of these things in more details. So once we leave the Adam and Eve and the children, there are two important figures that we're going to revisit. One is a character named Noah. Noah has been presented at a time in our early life as a remnants that has been saved from Adam and Eve's creation. And Noah and his story has been riveted in our brains, and some of us still accept it as a history. And if you accept that as history, then African people have a difficult time explaining the reality because everybody will have to come out of one of the sons of Noah. So check me. They're giving us a restart of the world. So God created the world and got angry and destroyed it. And in that destruction, 8 people were left to sail around in a boat for 40 days and 40 nights. And when they came out, nobody knew which day of the week it was. So I don't know if all of them start naming the days again. But more importantly, it wipes away African history. And we begin to hold the idea that we all now come from Noah. That is a tragedy. Because the Chinaman has no relation to that history. The Indians have no relation to Noah's stories. They didn't come out of the boat. They were not in no ark. They're not a part of that Hebrew literature. We, the black people, have been locked into it and have taken those mythologies and fables as our history. So our biggest PhDs today, our biggest doctors and scientists, after you rationalize with them to the foundation, they explain the life and to what them got at Sundayschool. Not many break out of that mold. Still fearful, still believing, not knowing. So the characters need to be visited. Beyond Moses, we're going to visit. Beyond Noah, we're going to visit Moses. Now Moses presents himself presented as a character now who brings culture to black slaves by giving them laws like the 10 Commandments. And by taking black people psychologically out of Egypt, taking them into some desert, and reconverting them to some ideology of worshiping a jealous God. The people of the Akan, the Mandingos, the people of South Africa and Zimbabwe, they are not a part of this history. The millions and millions of Africans who are in the center, the west, the south, they are not a part of this Moses drama. But that drama has been connected to I and I's story as our history. And we think that we are now the descendants of Moses' children. We are now the remnants of the children who were saved out of Egypt. And so enough black people today call themselves Israelites and Jews because of the story of Moses. Iblak Sundayschool saying that much of these things are fables, much of these things are mythologies, but these stories are what they are. We have to begin to make the distinction now between reality and the fantasy that there is a salvation in the Son of God. Because they carry pass through a testament called the old one into one that is new, and in that new one, everything surrounds now the Son of God. So the God that we're introduced to in the Genesis now expire, and Son now take over as a company. And to put the Son in the center of everything now, the Christian religion have created a construct now called the Trinity. And in the Trinity now, they have put together the God of the Bible, original God that they told us about, His Son, and a construct called the Holy Ghost. This is not a new concept. It's a stolen concept from Kemetic people, where there was a father and a son and a mother in a powerful unity called a Trinity. It's again the Kemetic people maintaining the presence of the female, Isis. So the Trinity is the Father, the Son, and the Mother as a foundation to the African family system. What the Christian Bible has been telling us is that Trinity is the Father, a Son, and a Spirit. So there is no feminine in the Trinity of the Christian Bible. And that's a bird trying to fly on one wing. So we have to reject and reconstruct and remember that the idea of the Trinity is a scientific construct. It's a religious idea in its originality. The Trinity is the proton, the neutron, and the electron. The smallest unit of matter made up of the proton, the neutron, and the electron. 3 in 1, 1 in 3. The Trinity. In philosophy and in nature, we realize that time, which is one of the dimensions of reality, has 3 dimensions: past, the present, and the inevitable. Again, the Trinity. The dimension of space has 3 aspects: length, width, and height. The mind, as manifested out of man, also has 3 levels of expression. There's a conscious, there's a subconscious, and there's a collective racial unconscious. The Trinity is not a exclusive religious Christian ideology. It's an ancient principle of 3, why the triangle is such a powerful shape, and why the pyramids are built in a triangular shape. It's the power of the Trinity. And within the black man, his personality also has a Trinity construct. Iblak Sundayschool speaks about the I, the me, and the self. The 3 aspects of being, the Trinity within the black personality. And if we delve into the nature of our identity, we will find that it also functions at a Trinitarian level. There is sex, there is race, and there's your name. So Iblak Sundayschool will be presenting perspectives about our Sunday school teaching from the plantation, and what is it we could perhaps really acquire if we revolutionize that day in revisiting what they have given us to identify what we need to throw away. They have been holding on out of fear. We have to let go to find that liberation. So, those who are listening and those who are participating in their own way, you all can always drop me a message as to what you think Iblak Sundayschool is positioning itself to say and do. Yes, is asking the questions that were hard while we were in not just Sunday school now, but further on in the evolution of Sunday school takes you to church. When you get to the church on Sundays now, it's a bigger occasion, and no questions there so can be asked. It's a one-man show working from one book, coming from paragraph in different chapters and putting them all together and creating imagery. And in that imagery, it's about control. Control through fear. Fear is the greatest tool of control. The slave owners use violence and intimidation as weapons of fear to make I slaves, physical slaves. And it to make us mental slaves, but to create that same violence. But this time we come to religious teachings. The religious teachings. Perhaps the most violent book on the creation of this planet is the Bible. Which other book has more death and war and destruction than that book? And yet African people holding on to that book as if it's dependent on their life. So it's the stories. And rather than try to go through all of the characters and the mythologies and the fables, we have to get out of the beginning. We have to get out of that imaginary beginning and reconstruct what we know as our story. We can speak of a beginning that takes us to the Sirius star system. We just track the Dogon life and they take us out of the solar system into another one. So we are not limited to existence beginning, even in Africa. But the European has been smart enough to locate the story of the beginning in Ethiopia, in Egypt, in and around Africa. And smart enough, the scholars of King James. They were smart enough to locate that garden story somewhere near Africa. Because it gives black people the feeling that, yes, there is some truth to the story because Africa really is the cradle of life and see the Garden of Eden is in Africa. And so we get tied up now into this Garden of Eden story. With the illusion now of we being made from dirt. And from the dirt we come, shall dirt we return. We were always from liquid. We don't come from no dirt. 2/3 of the planet's surface is liquid. And the same percentage for the human body. So we couldn't come from dirt. So I have to shake off them kind of foo-foo argument, them stories there. And we want a Christian, if we want the Christians to be honest in themselves, we want the Christians now to begin to read the narratives presented by the black scholars that were not available during Sunday school. Dr. Ben O'Connor, Black Man on the Nile, Amos Wilson, Psychology of the Black Child. And we need to do our own that we can teach about our own. So the Sunday school was a place in a more ancient time where it was programming through fear. The church, more sophisticated, still programming, but Africans used to use the gathering of church most of the time now to plan revolution. That was one of the only time they could come together and design and strategize how to get out of the plantation society. You will hear people talk about not being mentally free, and we need to liberate ourselves and all of these things. I'm going to just make up a statement that might sound away. But the biggest slave master over the black people right now is God, not the devil. But the devil has never been accused of doing anything wrong, you know. Yeah, when the hurricanes come and the trauma and the death, it's always God's fault, God's will, the will of the Lord. And every time black people have to move, we have to put this God in front of us. Where is the consciousness that should lead us? Where is the black consciousness that should lead us? Instead, we are being led by God. And And God is also serving many other groups and races. The white man saying God he trusts. And his trust is really in the weapons of war. And then he were told that the God of war. You ever let go the God thing? That me I say right now. Let go the God and the devil thing and just deal with black man and black woman. And we are the force of in the earth. The male and the female. The African, the black female and the black male. The male black. But I identify as black. Because in the Sunday school, black was evil. So no child would identify with evil. So why should a child identify with being black? All the images of the devil were black, with a fork and a pointed tail. There's no child, as far as I'm concerned, at that age and stage, wants to be called black. And to reinforce that negativity, when he goes into the dictionary now of the educational system, it tells you that black is the worst. So we're all aspiring and clamoring to be non-black. Non-black. What does that mean? Because we can't be white. So schizophrenia, psychotic behavior, disturbance in identity formation. These are our ailments, which only I and I can speak to, and only I and I can make an attempt to heal. It can't be done by the outside forces. This is 2,000 years of battering. So if we wake up ourselves, we keep on wake up, we have to shake off God and the devil. Every coin, they say, have three sides. There's good, there's bad, and there's indifference. There's head, there's tail, and there's the sides that can rule. So it's not just a binary reluctance of good and evil. Good and evil is a moral construct created by man. It's not in the nature of the universe to address good and evil. It's a man-made thing. What nature respects is power. And plants are powerful, animals are powerful. Who suffers in nature are those who are powerless. So as man, we have to develop power. Marcus Garvey will tell us that we need power in all its forms: physical, mental, spiritual, financial, and military. Sunday school never teaches us about getting power. It tells us about respecting the power of God and to fear the power of Jesus. Power. We're given the impression through stories again that it was power. Why one angel was kicked out of heaven? Because he wanted power. And like the leader of the free world today, only him alone must have power. So I'm on Black. Just a drop of sound from the first Black Sunday School broadcast on this YouTube channel. Will become a feature in a time to come, very shortly. But for now, I say more power to the island. You can drop me an email at iblak@yahoo.com. If there's a button on there that they say you must subscribe, you can touch it and see what happens. But for now, just I give thanks for the capacity. Yeah, the capacity to present in old time. Iblak Sunday School will be emphasizing 4 subject matters: astronomy, biology, chemistry, history, and psychology. Those are the, for the moment, the foundation subject matters of Iblak Sundayschool: astronomy, biology, chemistry, history, psychology. And the list will go on, because ultimately we also have to begin to introduce physics as one of the essential sciences of the African mind. So Sundayschool was really set out to upgrade the mind of the enslaved people. The curriculum would not be limited to one book, and teachers would have to upgrade it to deliver the messages and read the text of English properly. And we know that that was not the case on the plantation. And so the Baka man used the plantation now to develop his spokespersons, his representatives, and today will become fit enough now to take over the Sunday school sermon. But interestingly, while the Africans were being conditioned to deliver the sermon, a white man was always sitting nearby. He was called the monitor. Yeah? And his responsibility was to make sure that no black man go up there and teach and go off track. That you maintain the message of white supremacy through the supremacy of our God. But we have experiences of black people now, black men who read through all those things and become revolutionaries. And we speak about the great Nat Turner. Some call him the first black prophet. Nat Turner? Nat Turner was a pastor, He learned to read and became educated. And in his development and reading the Bible, same Bible them give us, and he started ask questions. Because asking questions, is a sign of transformation. Because something is into something and you want to know. And what did Nat Turner identify? He identified that there's a contradiction in the Bible when you talk about masters and servants. And he tried to figure out, how can the God of the master be the God of the servant? You tell me. How can the God of the servant be the same God as the master of the plantation? That the owners will be being served by the same God as oppressing the plantation workers? Something into something, see. But what is it? What is it that is into that thing that made a man like Nat Turner revolt? And you see, a revolt is not a revolution. Yeah? A revolt is not a revolution. And a revolution requires fundamental changes. So when Nat Turner realized that something is wrong with the teaching, he was going to a revolutionary mode. And his mode was to tear down the structure that was promoting that type of thinking. And tearing down the structure wasn't just an ideological claim, it was a thing about getting rid of the individual people who were promoting that ideology. So he started kill off white people. Yeah, man, just start up some raid, and gather some man and decide to just kill up some white people because he realized that, all the necessary don't work. And they have to hunt him down and, after a couple of days, because in America there's no way you can really run unless you really go and join the underground thing and get away into Canada and so on. So them track him down, Nat Turner, and they murder him. But he told his people that he got a message from God that he should attack these white people. The same God who giving them messages to do things and tell them, say, God, give him a message now. So he just begin to turn around the ball game, because he realized that his intelligence is what was being used to capture his own brain. The intelligence of the white man was being used to capture the consciousness and the imagination of black people. And they were using the church, not trying to lick out. And of course, say the same God, let it be his will that Turner would die. We have to let go know that God, because we can't hurt anymore. We can't have any more hurt by holding on. So we can get almost assured relief if we let go. But I want my boy, let go, hold on to what? Hold on, what do you mean hold on? What is there what you want to hold on to your family? You want something to hold on to your woman, hold on to your man, hold on to your children, hold on to what will become posterity. You have to hold on to another. Hold on to yourself, hold on to the I, hold on to that divinity that is within each individual, which is the I. Yeah, the I is the center of reality. The I has nothing to hold on to. The I is about expression. Nothing to hold on to. And the I has nothing to fear. Because when the river leaves the top of the mountain, and it's going down to the sea, maybe halfway down towards the sea, the river panic. So when the river realizes, boy, it can't turn back. And it's heading into a place where its identity will become dissolved. Yeah, man, the river panic for a while, but you see, as it gets closer to the ocean, the river just relax. You realize it's going to join the whole. It will become a part of the cosmic plenty, the ocean. So we don't have to fear, the I don't have to fear what is inevitable. And it's not that death is inevitable, What is inevitable is that time continues. That's what is inevitable. And the living will carry through the memories of the present and the past. That is what is inevitable. But we're focusing on death. If we were focused on our lives, what we're doing while we're living, then posterity is what we're going to be the inevitable. So we should be focusing on the inevitable, which is our posterity. We have to change the matrix. We have to change the manner of how they have us thinking based upon that one book that all of us get programmed into. Our brothers who have been programmed into Islam, although they speak of a different God with a different name and a different prophet, they also got the creation story. They all get locked into Eve and Adam and Moses. It's the same Genesis, all in the entire black race, whether you're Islamic or whether you're a Christian. The Christian Genesis story and the Noah and the Moses is the capturer. So the notion of the world washing away, ludicrous. And if you embrace that, then all things are possible. But once you accept that all things are possible, then God becomes the center of your life. That is the program. But we need to move away from those what is possible to what is highly probable. And what can become inevitable. Yeah, it's things to unlearn. So Iblak on the channel, we're focusing on things that we can unlearn, which is the harder part, because our learning is, for many of us, is cement. But for many of us, those who are 35, 40, 40, 45, 50, is a long time under the program. So the emphasis for those who are conscious must be directed towards our youths. And youths don't mean baby fathers and man in them 20s. Youths are teenagers, 12, 15 years old. These are the youths who need to get a different view of the book and ultimately of their own lives. Yeah, so we're coming out. Coming out. I have another 3 minutes. I was going to find a song for the island. All right. So we're gonna leave it right there. So we'll leave it right there. So for the first output, and I hope the ones then who were able to link up. Yeah, you get a good feel, and you can encourage ones and ones who know of the metamorphosis. So yeah. Alright. So we're going out. Goodness is what I'm after. Listening to my forefathers. I am the storm. So this is the book. Hey, this is Sugar representing Edge 105 FM. You don't know why, so the music there. Edge 105.1 and 105.3 FM. It's your life, your music. Met you on a Tuesday, September 14th. You were there, standing right beside me. Felt like we were living in a dream. Local. Seconds turn to minutes, to days, to months, turn to years. The two of us felt like we were living destiny. Sometimes love is fun. Especially when you fall so hard. Sometimes I forget, but then when Tuesdays come back around, I remember the love that we lost and found. The 14th of September. Sometimes the memories are all we get to keep forever.
conspiracy will not last. Cause we know our history. From the pyramid, we are the light. Diligent to humanity, we all know your reign. Come on, historian, we all have a claim to fame. Time to tell the world now, we all know your reign. Come on, historian, we all have a claim to fame. We know our history. Open the pyramid. We are on the line, buddy. Diligent to humanity. Left from the north to the south, to the west. Victims of persecution and conquest. But we know our history. Open the pyramid. We are from the line, buddy. Diligent to humanity. We all know your aim. Come on, historian. We all have a claim to fame. Time to tell the world now, we all know your aim. Come on, historian. We all have a claim to fame. We know our history. Open the pyramid. We are from the Nile Valley. We know our history. Open the pyramid. We are from the Nile Valley.
Yes, we are from the Nile Valley.
Know our history.
Only 3 minutes.
Open the pyramid.
Yes.
We are
We are listening now.